We're here on HQ Spotlight, and we have a 2-for-1 today. Sent Evan Washburn out to Ohio, and he's got the Cleveland Browns practicing with the Minnesota Vikings joint practice, and it's going on right now. Evan, what's going on out there?
This is awesome, Chris. I mean, you've got two teams, full pads, team periods. It's a red zone period as we speak. And look, I'm preaching to the choir here, but this should replace the preseason. If fans could consume this the way they consume the preseason, outside of the ones that are here, they would be much more entertained. You also get one-on-one periods, back-on-backers, physicality, obviously not tackling to the ground in a lot of cases, quarterback still protected. But the quality of the work and the quality of what you get to watch is far above what we'll see Saturday between these two teams in a stadium.
Yeah, Saturday afternoon, those two teams will be playing in a preseason game, but joint practices the next couple of days. Evan, you got there just after the news broke about J.J. McCarthy out for the season. Of course, Jordan Addison hurt as well, but that's not as bad. What is the mood around the Vikings right now in the middle of this tumultuous offseason?
It's still positive, Chris, and I think while acknowledging that J.J. McCarthy's injury is extremely unfortunate, largely for J.J. McCarthy and this team, the plan as recent as yesterday and when J.J. went down basically after that preseason game was for Sam Darnold to be this team's starter. So it doesn't necessarily have a seismic shift in with what's going on with this team as we speak and their plans for week one. But what it does take away is the development, at least on the field, of McCarthy and his availability to, if things were to go south with Sam Darnold, let's say, or his development, JJ's would have been so quick that he would have taken over that spot. So I think the outlook is still positive for this team based off of what they've had planned. And then to maybe avoid serious injury, as it would appear with Addison, is also reason for optimism with this team.
The problem is they're in potentially the best division in the NFC, and it just seems like every other team has gotten better. You have the Lions finally breaking through last season. The Packers have Jordan Love now, and they performed well at the end of last year. And the Bears could be a playoff team as well. So what are the expectations for this Minnesota team?
Look, it's a tough year to be in roster transition in the NFC North for all the reasons you laid out. So I view Minnesota in a lot of ways like a team in Tennessee, where there's a version of events where this team is competing for the division, maybe not so much. Who knows what injuries could occur? Not that you root for those for Detroit or Green Bay, but could be in that wild card discussion. I think there is a version where the ceiling is relatively high, but the floor is also very low. And that's unsettling, if you will, for fans. But this team does feel like when they have Justin Jefferson, a quality offensive line, if Sam Darnold can be the best version of himself. But I really look at Minnesota as a group where if their defense in year two of Brian Flores, and they made a lot of moves on that side to really address his style of player, if this defense can make a leap and be maybe a top 10 unit, as we know, Chris, that can keep you in a lot of games and allow you to manufacture victory, just like we heard about Brian McFadden passionately talking about the Steelers getting to 9 wins. The Vikings could have their version of that as well.
The Cleveland Browns have higher expectations. They won 11 games last year with quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. Kevin Stefanski, second Coach of the Year award. Is it possible that he's still underrated as a coach, even with those 2 Coach of the Year awards since 2020?
Probably, because while I love hanging out with Kevin Stefanski, he's kind of a dude's dude, but he's pretty low-key. He's not one for the spotlight, so I don't think he's necessarily top among the list when people think of famous NFL head coaches, despite those awards. But what he did last year was incredible, and it wasn't just him. It was everybody in this organization. But just talking to him for about 10 minutes prior to today's practice, he appreciated what they did last year, and what he took from it was the building of resiliency. And that really goes back to what they do right now off the field, the bond that they have as a group, because inevitably hardships are going to occur over the course of the season. They dealt with more than really anybody else, but it can't rattle you. It can't knock you off your axis. And I think they're hoping to take that into this year with also a healthier team and a team offensively that's streamlined and led by the best version of Deshaun Watson is the hope.
Yeah, update us on how Watson is doing in his return from injury, and Nick Chubb, how far off he might still be.
So nothing really to report on Nick Chubb. I haven't seen him out here necessarily. From those that are here day to day, things seem to be trending positively. Obviously, he's a guy who works harder than anybody and makes the weight room his friend. So, look, there's hopes that Nick Chubb can return to his form, his all-pro form here in 2024. When it comes to Watson, he's been fully cleared from that shoulder injury. He's been out here. He's been playing well. I asked Kevin Stefanski about Watson, and he just pointed to health. There were flashes of it last year, and that's reality. I mean, I was on the sideline for a couple of his games before he got hurt, and there were moments where he did look like Deshaun Watson of the Houston days. And now it's just about stringing those together and building some consistency, and that really comes down to staying healthy. So really, as you know, Chris, it comes down to how he protects himself, but how they protect him. They still don't have their two starting tackles, Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills. The hope is that they're ready to go week one. They're coming off knee injuries, respectively. So they need to be able to protect Watson so that he can have some consistency to get back to who he was when he joined this team.
On the other side of the field, you have one of the best defensive players in the league, and Myles Garrett may be the best. I know you spoke with him a little bit earlier. And how are they feeling about the 3-year extension locking up Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah right behind Myles?
They love what they feel when it comes to defense here in Cleveland. That was one of the more fun periods before joining you, watching that defense go up against Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, and the Vikings offense in a red zone period, because they just have so much emotion, physicality, and they bring it even in what is not a full tackling period. When it comes to the Owusu-Koramoah deal, it kind of locks up that position and allows this defense to feel secure in the fact that they've really got Pro Bowlers at all three levels, and that's the dream scenario for any defensive coordinator. The key for this defense this season will be bringing what was at times historic in terms of performance and numbers at home, on the road, and be better in those red zone periods. Those were really the glaring issues with what, again, was at times a pretty impressive defense, and you saw that in the wild card loss to Houston.
But they're in the best division in football. Amanda Guerra spoke with Brian McFadden and John Breach about it earlier, trying to project what every team will do. You got the Ravens, who had the best record in the NFL last season, a 2-time MVP. The Bengals are getting Joe Burrow back healthy once again. The Steelers haven't had a losing season since you were playing lacrosse in high school, Evan. So where do the Browns fit in?
I mean, I think they stack up, at least in preseason projections, properly in that 3 slot. I look at it as 1A and 1B, whether it's Cincinnati, Baltimore, pick your poison. I'd probably lean towards Cincinnati based off of roster continuity and staff continuity and a healthy Joe Burrow. But when I look at Cleveland, based off of that defense we just talked about, and an offense that if Deshaun Watson, look, he doesn't have to be the ceiling of Houston Deshaun Watson, but if he's anywhere close to that, this team can absolutely compete, not just to win this division, something they haven't done in a really long time, but also compete with the Bills, the Texans, and the Kansas City Chiefs for the AFC.
Evan Washburn with the Cleveland Browns and Minnesota Vikings at their joint practices this week. They will play on Saturday. And, of course, we'll be seeing Evan week in and week out beginning September the 8th on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.